I think we're going to get started. So good evening. Welcome everyone. My name is Angelica Diggs, so I'm the Executive Director of the Montclair History Center. I also, someone in the Zoom chat can just give us the thumbs up. You can also hear us on Zoom tonight. We have a participation happening online as well this evening in Montclair Film. So we're thrilled to be here in partnership with Aging in Montclair, who brought this idea to us, and Judy will share a little bit about that this evening. Where we're going to be hosting 2 live interview events. Tonight is our first with Nancy Leroy and Larry Hollander, who we'll introduce in just a moment. And tonight we're going to hear about Larry's experience in Montclair and particularly Grove Pharmacy that many remember. So those of you unfamiliar with the Montclair History Center, although I know many of you, and I think you are, we're located on Orange Road. We host a number of educational programs. We have a research center, the Crane House and Historic YWCA Museum. We do a lot of community events and partnerships in the program, like things that bring us here tonight. I also want to thank our grant sponsor for this evening as Partners for Health Foundation, and also to the wonderful staff at Montclair Film who makes this whole evening possible. We just show up and smile. If you didn't already, there is popcorn. And we'll have some other treats this evening as well after the end, hosted by the Hollanders tonight. So thank you for that as well, too. I want to give thanks to Judy Beck, who's on the board of Aging in Montclair, to just say a few things on behalf of them as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Angelica and Aaron. It has been our pleasure and aim to work with Montclair History Center. I am program co-chair of Aging in Montclair with Eve Friedlander, who's sitting eating popcorn. And as my very good friend Nancy reminded me that we're here at this time, I think it's about 7:05, and by the time we leave tonight, we all will have aged in Montclair together. So I just want to tell you a little bit about how this program came about, and also a little bit about AIDS. I guess it was a year or so, or two, Nancy. I met Nancy, and she said, I have this great idea for a program. I would really love to interview people who've lived in Montclair a very long time to get an idea of what Montclair was like before it has become this trendy, wonderful place that it is today. So I said, that's a great idea. And she wrote a proposal, which we brought to the Board of AIM, and the board sort of said yes. And then we decided to take the bull by the horns and speak to Montclair History Center. Now, I have to tell you, I did not think Montclair History Center would think our idea was great, but we went, and Angelica and Aaron were more than excited about the idea, and we then got really, really excited, and they put forth a proposal to Partners for Health. And lo and behold, Partners for Health said, yes, this will be a really wonderful program to have in our community. And so we were off and running. And then the challenge was to find the perfect people who would interview. So tonight we're going to be interviewing Larry Hollander, and in June we'll be interviewing Dr. Elaine Douglas. Now let me just tell you a few words about Aging in Montclair. Aging in Montclair is the voice of seniors living in Montclair. The purpose of AIM is to help seniors live a vibrant, thriving life. To that end, we provide all kinds of exciting programs, facilitated conversation groups about issues of aging, issues that may not be discussed with family, but can be discussed in small groups. Linda is one of our facilitators. We do Saturday socials, where people have a chance to learn something and to socialize with friends. And Emmy Kamahara is our Saturday social person. We also do various and sundry programs in collaboration with the Montclair Art Museum and other community organizations. Just to let you know, if you're not a member, We'd love you to join the 600 members that we have. Membership is free, and your life will be much enriched by being a member of AIM. I can assure you.
And you don't have to be old. You're aging anyway.
So as Nancy, my mentor says, you're young as you want to be, and it is not an organization that deals with the issues, really the downside of aging. We think positively. So please join us. It's free, and we'd love to see you at our next program, which is Saturday in St. Cashin's.
St. Cashin's this coming Saturday.
Wellness.
Wellness.
So we'll see you then, hopefully. So take it away.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to now introduce what we're here for tonight, our program with Nancy and Larry. And just because I know we're going to dive into the conversation this evening, we hope you come back for the next one, which is on June 12th with Dr. Elaine Douglas, whose family comes from some of the first Black physicians in Montclair. So we hope you join us for that as well. So why we're here tonight. As many of you know, Larry Hollander's family owned and operated Grove Pharmacy from 1927 until 2012. So I know we're going to talk about that. So this evening, we're going to learn about Larry, his life, how his family got started here, and that business that brought so many of you here to hear his story tonight as well, amongst other things about Larry's life. Our interviewer, who is a part of Aging in Montclair, so this is Nancy Leroy. So after retiring from the diplomatic service, Nancy resumed her acting career in film theater in Washington, D.C. and New York City. She moved here to Montclair to be near her family, her children and grandchildren, and commute easily to New York City for acting jobs. So we're thrilled to have you both this evening. I'm going to hand it off to Nancy to get us started. Enjoy the program. And just a reminder to use the microphone so those on Zoom can also hear you tonight.
Well, don't worry, I won't forget to use it. Just so that you all know, thank you very much, Angelica and Judy. Just so that you know, I have not prepared a list of questions to ask Larry. This is what I call interview improv, where I'm going to start you off, and we're going to talk a little bit, but it all depends on what Larry wants to tell us and how we go about it. And I met Larry briefly, so I know a little bit about him and his fascinating life. So, hello, Larry.
Hello, everyone.
Larry, let's sit down. No. Later, you're going to talk. Just Anyway, when I usually start these things with just out of curiosity, but there may be some people here who actually don't know you. Would you mind if I asked you how old you are?
I'll be 91. I'll be 91 in June.
So
Well,
June 12th this year, you're going to be 91. That's great. Well, it's interesting to know, about the age of people, because I have I had a good friend who was the director of the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C., and he interviewed a lot of people, and he was a great storyteller. And he said that old people have the best stories because they know how they turned out. And definitely yours has turned out in a really, really great way. So let's start with that. How did your family, why did they get here? Where did they come from? Let's start with that.
my father came here in 1898 from Austria with his father, and my mother was born in the United States, and they got married in, 1924, I think. They had 4 children. I am the baby. And now I'd just like to start off with something, if I may. Hello, everyone. I'm going to put you to work. When I say something, I want you all to say, isn't that extraordinary? Coffee in 1934 was 5 cents.
Isn't that extraordinary?
A home was $6,000.
Isn't that extraordinary?
A loaf of bread was 8 cents.
Isn't that extraordinary?
A trip to the doctor was like 25 cents.
Isn't that extraordinary?
So you get the idea that prices were a little cheaper then. Now I'm going to sit back down.
That's good. That was interesting, Larry. And I'd like to put all that together with your own life rather than giving us a little lecture on it. Let me
Well,
ask you again.
I was the youngest of 4 boys. And believe me, they beat on me. Oh my God, they're my cousins. They came from Connecticut. Oh my God, can we hear a cheer for my cousins? They are great people, by the way. Oh my God, this is so exciting. Wow.
Larry, can we get back to another guy here? So I would like to set you in space here, okay? Your parents came here. Where did they come from?
As I said, my father came from Austria. My mother was born in
And why did they come here? How did they get to New Jersey?
Oh, my father went to Brooklyn.
Uh-huh.
They were born in Brooklyn. My mother lived in Newark, and my father met my mother, and of course, women have the clout, and so he came over to New Jersey. He became a pharmacist. It was 1 year then to become a pharmacist. He didn't have the money. He wanted to go to medical school. So that was another year, but he didn't have the money, and he became a pharmacist. In 1927, he got this job in a drugstore in Montclair. And where was it? It was on the corner of Walnut and Grove Street. I don't know if everybody remembers that. That was before 1941. And it was a very small store. It's a luncheonette now. They call it the corner. It happens to be called the corner. And it had a soda fountain in it. And my father had the store during the Depression. And his biggest day was Sunday, and he took in $35. So it was a real struggle. He worked from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. But in those days, that's what you had to do to survive. And he had 4 boys. The youngest was a mistake. That was me. And definitely I was supposed to be a girl. And my 3 brothers, they all had a patsy, and they all beat on me.
What was your childhood like? What did you do when you were a kid?
My childhood was wonderful. I had a brother who was a year older, and we were friends. He was athletic, I was, but we played ball, we played football, and he went off to college, Lafayette College, in 1951. He was there 1 month, and my parents went up there for a football game, and he had the flu. So they thought he had the flu, and he came home. We slept in the same room, and he had spinal meningitis. That Monday morning, I went to school because I thought he had the flu. I came home, and his mattress was in the driveway. In those days, spinal meningitis was so contagious, and my parents never got over it. It was a terrible tragedy. But out of tragedy comes different things. My father never got over my brother's passing. And because of that, I had no choice, but I had to become a pharmacist.
How did that feel at the time that this happened, that you decided that you had to become a pharmacist? What was that like?
In those days, a child was subservient to their parents. Today, it's reversed. But it was very tragic. I still, to this day, 70 years later, that my world would have been so different. But as it turned
What was
out,
your world, what do you mean by that, Larry? Your world would have been
I
so different.
probably would have not been a farmer.
What do you think you would have been?
Probably a teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Of what?
Oh, anything. I don't know. I wasn't good at anything. I'll tell you, that's the truth. My three brothers and my father were very handy. I could not hammer a nail. They knew in later life, everybody knew the computer. I knew nothing. So I had to be a retailer. If I wasn't a retailer, and because of my brother's tragedy, I became a retailer.
What do you call it? What is a retailer? What do you mean by that?
Or being in business. I owned a pharmacy.
But a pharmacy is medical and.
Yeah, but
what's the
I was a
retail part?
businessman. I was a businessman, and you know the professional part. I was a pharmacist, but to me the biggest thing was promoting the store and promoting people.
Did you always know that, or was that something you learned when you started doing the pharmacy?
You know, I learned on the job. It's so easy to be a retailer because all you have to be is nice to people. Hey, Nancy, how's your back? You know, people love that. I'll tell you a quick story, just not to sidetrack, but I had a customer who lived on Christopher Street. And he moved away. His name was Mr. Conis. I remember his name. He moved away to West Caldwell. 10 years later, he walked into the store and I said, "Hi, Mr. Cohen, how you doing? How's the family?" And because, this is certainly far-fetched, but because I remembered his name, he passed 20 drugstores and became a customer again. So it's incredible how people love to hear their name. Hey, Nancy, how are you? You know, they love to hear their name, and that was my forte. I couldn't remember anything else, but I did remember my customers. Maybe because they put money in my pocket.
What were you like when you were a kid? I mean, was the World War II was going on?
Well, let's go back to that. I'm sorry, I just got a little sidetracked. I grew up during the war, and I used to go out at night, and I can't imagine how scary it must have been for the kids in Europe when they heard bombings and killings and saw all different things. Because I used to see the searchlights that they had in the sky. Does anybody remember those? They had searchlights and used to scare the shit out of me, to be honest with you. But growing up was, it was a little tough because my father, who had he took in a partner, my uncle, who we were 4 boys and they were 5 boys. Wonderful, wonderful. They were like my brothers, and we lived in those days, we didn't have much, and we lived in each other's houses, and families were families, and they weren't looking at the phone. But we had no TV, we listened to the radio, no jet planes, but there was something camaraderie about the families, and people from New York just used to come to our house and have dinner with us, no invitation or anything. And now you need a special.
Where did you live?
I lived right around the corner from the store, 24 Oxford Street. My parents, I was born there. My parents, I think, paid about $5,000 for that house.
Was there much of a Jewish community here when you were growing up?
Very small Jewish community. I had about 5 or 6 kids in my school, and we did have a temple in town, which was very nice, which I was bar mitzvahed in. But growing up in those days was it was fun. I went to Montclair. I went to Grove Street School, which is now the Darren School across the street. I went to George Innes, which is part of the high school now, the building across the street from the high school. And in those days, Montclair High was a high standard school, one of the best in the country. And I got me through college, what I learned in high school, to be honest with you. And then because of the tragedy in my family, I applied to Rutgers, which was in Newark. And in those days, you went to college, but you worked. And guess how much the tuition was at Rutgers in 1952? You ready? Da-da-da-da. $11 a credit. And in pharmacy, you took 20 credits, so it was $220 a semester. So we used to earn that in the summer, and it was, but now I think it's about $12 a credit. I don't know. Yeah.
So when you graduated from, how quickly did you go into your dad's business after you got your degree?
Well, I went to school for in those days it was 4 years, now it's 7. I graduated in 1956. I interned for a year for my father. You had to intern in those days and then take the exam. And then I went in the Army for 6 months. I was a hero. And I was probably the worst soldier ever created. But I was in the Army. In those days, you went for 6 months and you were in the reserve for 5.5 years. So I was in the reserve. And then Kennedy, when they put up the wall in Berlin, called in the troops. I was one, and we were going to go to Germany. Figure we were going to fight, and we went to Fort Dix to get organized. And they said, "We don't know where you're going to go, but you're not going to be at Fort Dix for the year." You know where we were? Fort Dix. That's the Army way. I improved my golf game about 10 strokes.
So when did you got married very young, as I recall?
Yeah, I got married too young. The marriage didn't work, and then I met my lovely wife, Linda, training for a marathon, and she beat me, so I had to marry her. But,
so you had kids though in your first marriage?
Yes, I have 3 children, and I'm the luckiest guy on the face of the earth. What Lou Gehrig said, he's the luckiest man on the face of the earth. Larry Hollander is the luckiest man on the face of the earth. My daughter, she's a pharmacist. She became a podiatrist. She had a 2-year surgical residency. Then she got her MBA, and she worked for Johnson & Johnson her whole life. She is president of her temple, and she does a lot of good things. I'm very proud of her. My son, my older son, who just turned 60, was a brilliant kid, and he made a lot of money. Didn't give me any, but he made a lot of money. He retired at age 43 and became a philanthropist. What that young man has done for people is amazing. He had this stomach disorder, which destroyed his liver, and he was going to die. My daughter went there to visit him. He lives in Florida. And she came home, she told me, "Dad, he's going to die." That night, it was a miracle. A liver was available that matched him. And ladies and gentlemen, you should see him now. That's the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, is that man. And because he does so much good, I think God rewarded him. And then my young son, who's probably the best athlete in the family, is working very hard in New York. You know, they work those kids hard. Wow. But he gets time for golf and softball, etc. And he's just a terrific young man. And I'm very proud of all my children that they have really done well. And you got to be lucky to have great kids and kids that are respectful and nice. And they certainly fill the bill. So I'm a very lucky man there.
Yeah, that sounds really terrific. You're so fortunate. Let's go to when you started working at Grove Pharmacy.
Right. Grove Pharmacy.
Wait, before you start, that I went over there a couple of months ago just because I'd never been to Grove Pharmacy. And so I went inside, and one of the people that worked there when Larry was still the owner is still there, June. And so I got
June is here tonight. Stand up, June. And also Pat is here. Pat was a rookie. He only worked about 30 years.
Well, anyway, it was a great experience to do that. So
I was very fortunate because I had coworkers that were phenomenal. June and Pat, Richie worked together with me as a pharmacist for 45 years. Michelle Sionis, she was a wonderful, wonderful person, a great pharmacist. She worked since high school, like 40 years. Sunil, Dave, there were so many great people. And people came into that store because they knew Pat. And in fact, Pat said that you helped them with something. They still remember that.
But Larry, you must have, I mean, here's a place that's a pharmacy, and you go in there, and apparently whatever you did made that place what it became. And I'd like to know what you did. What did you do?
Well, one thing I did do was in 1969, my uncle and my father were partners. I bought my father out in 1962, and I was partners with my uncle for 6 years, who was a wonderful, wonderful man, and who had wonderful, wonderful children. They were the 5 boys. We were like one big family. I was the catcher on the team. But it was, and he retired in 1968. And at that time, Grove Pharmacy was in the center of the block. We moved there in 1941, and it was 3 stores. We were in the middle. There was a hardware store on one side and a tailor on the other side. And the whole side of Grove Pharmacy was a soda fountain. I have one of my ex-employees here tonight, I think, who worked there. He wasn't very good. But my nephew, Michael. Oh, he's a great, great guy.
But what did you do to make this place?
Well, in 1968, when I took over, the first thing that I did was I put in a 401k, a retirement plan for everybody, which I paid for. And that people appreciated that, and they stayed. But we were like a family. That didn't really do. I enjoyed them, and they, I guess, liked me, so it worked out fine. But without them, I could never have been successful. I was a gadget guy, didn't know anything about them. I was one of the first in the state of New Jersey to have a pharmacy computer program, and I knew nothing, but the high school kids, you didn't have to show them anything. They were born with that information. The old guys, we had to have a trainer there for 2-3 weeks to teach us. And that's a true story. Every time I change systems, the young people they were born that way, I think. But wow, that was.
But what made people want to come to Grove Pharmacy? What did you
know why they came to Grove Pharmacy?
No, candy.
Well, we did a lot of promotions. We had the Easter Bunny, who went to people's houses.
What do you mean the Easter Bunny went to people's houses? What is it?
A Easter Bunny costume.
Why would they go to, you mean to deliver?
Deliver, yeah. And we had pictures with Santa Claus. All these kind of promotions that brought, people in. They kept the name of Grove Pharmacy. But one of the reasons I was successful was because I loved my business. I loved my employees. I loved my customers. And that shows. If you're a crank and a grouch, like my kids worked there when they were 12 years old. And I think that's part of the reason why they're such hardworking guys. My daughter's retiring, my son retired, and my young son just keeps going. But It was a wonderful experience. I used to go to work with a smile on my face and came home with a smile on my face.
How many hours did you have to work to get this going?
Well, in the beginning, I worked a lot of hours.
Like, what was that like?
It was work.
I know, but did you have a home life? Did you were able to?
Well, I'll tell you, I learned a lesson. When my uncle retired and I had the responsibility of the store, I used to stay there till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And then I found myself, Larry, you're churning your wheels. You're not getting anything done. You're tired. So I learned to delegate responsibility. Like Pat was in charge of the surgical supplies. June took care of the candy. Michael did nothing. But I love you guys. Believe me. But if you like something, you're going to be good at it. I had so many customers that come in and complain their boss this, their boss that. They were on all kinds of pills. And I used to tell them, you got to take care of yourself. And their stock answer was, oh, the pills make me happy. These two are physicians now, so they know what I'm talking about. You can't depend on pills. Yes.
Why did you decide to quit but still keep working?
Well, I was going to be carried out of there. That was my vision of Larry Hollander. But when the deal came along, I said, how can I do this to my wonderful wife if I wait till I'm sick and have to sell the business under distress? It's so I sold it, and good people, I was happy on the job, and I'm just as happy retired. I lived through you. I lived through Michael. I watched Siobhan with her successes. She now teaches medical school. And my children, I lived through them. I lived through these people. I go to coffee every morning on Watchung Plaza, and I met a bunch of people, and they sort of took me in, as the old guy, but they're so nice to me and make sure I'm comfortable and okay. And can I walk on the ice? And they hold me. And I lived through other people. And
Sorry, what do you mean by you lived through other people? It sounds like you're living your own life here.
I do live my own life, but I like to see what they're doing and enjoy what they're doing. And like Michael and Siobhan's children, they're wonderful kids, and they're successful, and that makes me feel good, like I'm a part of it.
Yeah, but that's not living through other people. That's living through your own experiences. And
no, it's almost like living through other people. And I have my wonderful wife who she ran and she gone. She's heard this 100 times, but she is just a wonderful, wonderful person.
So how is it though when you worked for 3 years after when you to the guy that do you want to tell anybody how much you bought that place for and how much you sold it for?
No.
The only thing I can tell you is that in 1968, I was lucky again, where tragedy, with the riots in Newark, and there was some problems in Montclair. My landlord came to me and said, Larry, I want to sell the building. I didn't have any money. I was broke. And like I would pay this vendor and not the other vendor and this vendor, when you first start out in the business, that's the way it is. But he said, well, I had to buy it because if he sold to somebody else and they threw me out, my home is gone. So he said, go to the bank, get half the mortgage, I'll hold the other half. And because of that, I was able to buy the building. And in 1980, I threw out my tenants and made the store big, what it is today.
I'm sorry, what year was that?
1968 is when
You threw out and you made the,
but I was paying my uncle and paying my father, and then paying for the building. And I finished everything in 1980, and I started again because I remodeled the store. And you know why I remodeled it? I said, you know what? I can keep the business I'm doing if I remodel the store. But because I remodeled the store and put new things, the volume went 14 times of what it was in 1980 to when I left. But I'm a lucky man. Out of tragedy came joy, and life has been wonderful to me. And I have no complaints. The good Lord takes me tomorrow. I've done a good job for myself.
do you ever wonder what it might be like if you'd been a teacher, what that kind of life might have been?
My brother Bob was a teacher, and I probably would have enjoyed it and everything, but because I did a lot of lecturing through the years.
What made you
I wouldn't have made the money I made. And
What made you decide to enlarge the store and go in that direction?
I was nuts. Really. I was like the third one in the state to get a pharmacy computer. I was like the second one to get a cash register computer. In those days, you ran a cash register. And then I bought a robot which fills the prescriptions for you. So I was a gadget man. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was a gadget man. I figured if they made it, it had to be better than me. So it was a fun time.
Did you live through that period when drugstores were being bought up by CVS and People's and all those big places?
Let me tell you something. They were not the competition. We had inventory. We had the best workers in the world. We were nice, and people came. They didn't mind paying a little extra because of the service, hearing their name, and knowing that people cared about them. There are some people who are only interested in price, so you couldn't reach them. But I was very lucky to have people like June and Pat and Michael work with me, and it was terrific. So I really have no complaint. And it wasn't hard, it was easy.
It was easy.
It was easy.
But you worked long hours, you worked really hard.
Well, in the beginning, I worked long and hard. I started turning my wheels, and I said, you know what? It's time to let other people do it. It wasn't done the way I wanted, which was perfect.
Of course, yeah.
But
So when you finally left after the 3 years where you went to work with your people you sold the place to,
you know, I fool around with the stock market. I am amazing at picking stocks. I think people will argue that fact, and I like sports, and you know, I'm just as happy as I say. I lived through other people and watch other people grow and do their thing.
was it at all
Meeting
difficult?
you, Nancy, what a nice thing that was.
Yeah, I bet. Was it difficult to go from being as busy as you were to doing exactly what you wanted to do?
You know what? I thought it would be. From day one, I was happy. I used to read a lot. Now I really can't focus my eyes. I don't know why. It's not my age. But and then I just want to make a shout out for Stuart Kyle, who had a competing pharmacy, took food out of my kid's mouth. So he was a wonderful, friendly. We'd help each other out with different drugs, etc. And Stuart, you want to stand up and just? But
us being minorities in Montclair. It was a challenge. But Montclair being what it is, very accepting up to a line. Very good customers, great place to do business, and everything else you said, ditto.
Very good. Stuart was a great friend. He did ran a great business. But Montclair was good to us, and we can't complain.
Was Montclair as mixed and diverse as it is now when you were growing up here?
Well, when I grew up, my parents were very liberal. And I had a lot of black friends, and they always came to the house and everything. But when you went to the movies, this was very sad. You went to the movies, the Wellmont Theater, the white sat on the bottom and the black sat on top. And you know what my friends and I did? We went up there and sat with them. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of all my friends.
What about the soda fountain? Was the
Oh, we had the soda fountain until 1956, and then my father threw it out in the store a little bit, but it ran the whole side of.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that the woman that we're going to be talking to, Dr. Douglas, who's black, said that there were places that there were a lot of soda fountains in Montclair, I guess in the 50s, and she said that they knew where they could go and where they couldn't. And I said, how do you know that? And she said, we just know.
You know, I don't remember that segregation part in Montclair where blacks couldn't go anywhere. Maybe it was, you know, I was on the outside.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't expect that, but it was interesting that there was this sense of, you sort of knew, like the people, but there probably wasn't a sign at the movie theater that said, black.
No, just.
They knew it, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
I'm going to tell you something about Elaine Davis. I'm going to blow the whistle on her. She worked out harder than I did. We
I'm sorry, Larry,
she was athletic, let me tell you.
Larry, who are you talking about?
Elaine Douglas.
Elaine Douglas, okay.
Going to be your speaker. Very, very wonderful lady. So if you have the time, I would certainly advise you listening to her.
No, I'm sorry, I missed the pronunciation of her name, and so I wasn't sure that she said Douglas. I thought she said Davis, so I was making sure. Yeah, no, I just have a couple more questions, and then we'll open it up. The thing that I'm wondering about is how do you feel about? I mean, you said that you're happy and you live well and you're perfectly fine. But as a person who's gotten to be your grand age, what's your thought about what it's like just to have had the opportunity to live this long?
Oh, I think it's wonderful, even though I used to run a lot and now I can hardly walk. But life is wonderful if you appreciate things, if you appreciate people, if you enjoy sports or whatever. It's going out to eat once in a while. Life is wonderful, and I just hope that aging in Montclair and Linda that do so much for the elderly to bring them around and get them to do things, and Judy, it's just terrific, and life is great right till the end. We just hope that I drop dead, but I don't know.
Do you feel fortunate that you've gotten to be around this long?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. As I said, I'm the luckiest guy on the face of the earth. Me and Lou Gehrig.
Well, it must be particularly poignant having that close brother that you were so fond of, having his life truncated.
But you know something?
Quickly.
There are bumps in the road. Everybody has bumps in the road. And you got to go over them. And one of the things that got me over my brother's tragedy were the Kennedys. They had so much tragedy in their life, and yet they went on. So life is for the living. That's what it should be.
Okay, well, listen, this was really, I learned a little bit more than I knew when we first met. So thank you very, very much. And I do think that if, Angelica, are you around? We're going to open it up to comments or questions. Although most of you seem to know Larry fairly well, so I can't imagine that there are too many questions. But maybe.
It's just getting my microphone back. Oh, thank you so much.
We just want to open it up for general comments, questions, or anything anyone would like to ask or say. And I will pass you the mic just so that our folks on Zoom can also hear you tonight.
I guess I put everybody to sleep.
Great. I saw two hands, so then I'll come to you next.
Hi, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. My question is, you said you came from a family of 4 boys total?
Yes.
What about your 2 oldest brothers? I'm curious, were they pharmacists? Where did they go?
My oldest brother became a school teacher. My second oldest was a physician, Stan Hollander. He was an ophthalmologist. I don't know if anybody used him, but he was the best. And my brother Marty never got a chance.
Were the 2 older at all going to go into pharmacy, though? I mean, why was it assumed that you would be it?
I think I made that assumption. Oh, yeah. Oh, Stan was a pharmacist, not because of the tragedy, but he was a pharmacist and then went on to medical school.
But you took over the business.
And that was Michael's father, Stan. I don't know if Stan's proud of that, but Michael is. And I love him. Believe me, I love him.
Okay, thanks.
I had another hand here.
I just want to say that even though Larry is no longer the owner, and we have been bought and sold a few times at the pharmacy, salt of the earth man, we can't replace him. But we have had transition and everything, and I see familiar faces here of customers, and I just want to say, please stick with us. Please be patient, and transition is a process, and it will get smoother, and it has been getting smoother as time goes on. So please stay loyal to growth.
That's very good for you.
Can you tell a story about your dog? Your dog. How the dog had a friend.
Oh.
Yeah, this is good.
This is a little sideline, but I had a dog, Scrappy. In those days, dogs ran wild. You let them out, they came back 3-4 days later. I'm going to tell you something you don't know. Dogs do not have friends. They'll play, but they don't make friends. My dog was an exception. He had this friend, Bo, who lived on the next street, and they called for each other. Bo would come on the porch and cry. We'd let Scrappy out, and they would go. Every Tuesday, the A&P truck, and they would be there. They were there getting a bone. They knew it was Tuesday. When my dog got old, in those days, the dogs went off and they made themselves a little barrier and they passed on. Bo came to the house every day and cried and cried and cried. A month later, Bo died. I say it was a broken heart, but Scrappy was a great dog. I have a lot of stories, but that's the most poignant.
Thank you for sharing that. I have a hand here, and then we're going to take one Zoom question, then I'll bounce back to you.
I was interested, you served a year or so in the reserves during the Berlin crisis. I did too, and I didn't have the good fortune of being stationed in Fort Dix. I was in Fort Bragg. But I think, and I wish you would comment on this, I think I grew up, even though I was in the Army, I got out of college and I was still a child. And when I got out of the Army, I was an adult. Did you feel that way?
Oh, no, I was a boy in the Army. I had a great time. You see the show MASH? Well, we were mashing and we were probably funnier and carried on. In fact, we had one sergeant, he was so upset he quit. The unit went on, some got transferred. But I believe it or not, I hated the reserve. I loved the Army. In fact, I was thinking about, if I would stay 3 years, they would give me a commission as a pharmacist. And I thought about it, but I couldn't do it. But I liked the Army. I was one of the few guys that really liked it. I was a lousy soldier, but I liked the Army. Had a lot of fun.
Why were you a lousy soldier? What do you mean? March or?
I didn't like marching. I didn't like standing still. I didn't like. I'll tell you a story. We had the general come and inspect our barracks, and I worked the whole night on my rifle because that was the big thing. I cleaned it. I took it in the shower. You weren't supposed to. Don't move out. And it was perfect. The general comes, he looks at my rifle, and he said, "Son, that is terrific." He walked over to my locker, went like this, "Gig, you're in for the weekend." That's a true story.
Did I see a hand before? Yes, okay, and then I'm gonna continue.
Oh, okay.
What was the origin of the candy business? I mean, I can't walk into Grove Pharmacy without starting to sound.
Well, I was
chocolate and Mary Jane's and all that sort of stuff.
I was someone who listened to my coworkers. I had a young girl who said, "Can I bring in some Halloween stuff?" And I don't know if anyone remembers, but Grove became the Halloween store of America. We rented 125 costumes, and then we turned the store inside out then. And the candy department, another employee, I used to go to these gift shows, and I saw a fudge machine. I said, "Oh, that's nice, a fudge machine in the store." And my coworker said, "Yeah, I think we should take in the fudge." From the fudge became the food department. Never made any money, but it was part of the store.
Is it related to that? Do you first, yeah.
Is it?
Yep, your turn. Yeah.
What advice would you give people just entering their second half of life?
That's a great question. There are a lot of people who are afraid of age. You can't fear it. You got to engulf it. You got to love it. Gee, I reached it. I reached there. I got there. That's terrific. It's the second half of my life. But, the circle of life, we're all not going to live forever. Maybe I will, but maybe I won't. But it just gotta love each day, and I love each day. Maybe I'm weird, I don't know, but I really love each day. And I love all my friends. Like tomorrow morning, I'll be at Coffee on Local and watch on Plaza, and we'll discuss all this. I'm sure a lot of them are watching and laughing at me because they've heard all these stories 100 times.
Do you ever find yourself sort of surprised that you've gotten to be this grand old age that most people aren't?
No, I just assumed that I would live this long. I don't know.
Yeah, but there are not many people around who are over 90, it's not.
Yeah, most of my friends are all upstairs, but you make new friends, and as I say, I go for coffee with all these younger people, and they're all so nice to me and everything. So it's great. Every day is great. Just gotta enjoy it. And if you have your health, and I'm not healthy, but I'm healthy. It's every day you gotta just enjoy it. I struggle. I can't get down here, but that doesn't bother me. I used to run marathons, and now I can't walk 26 steps. Doesn't bother me. My family comes, I sit in the chair, they don't bug me. And make life wonderful, everybody, because it is wonderful.
We have a few more questions here, and just so you know, you have a lot of employees in the chat having some fun banter, which we're going to read at the end for you. So we're going to get to the Zoom chat, we promise.
Mine's just a statement. My daughter is going to be 44 years old in a month. When she was 4, she had her ears pierced.
I'm gonna tell you a quick story about that.
The rest of the sentence is 5 years ago, I had my ears pierced by the same.
Oh.
So I think that's a great story.
I'll tell you a story. I started piercing ears, 50 years ago, in the beginning when I first took over. I do one ear for the kid, and they wouldn't let you do the other ear. And how I listen to people, customers said to me, why don't you do both ears at once? So we did both ears at once. They came from Pennsylvania, from Connecticut. Doctors sent, because they had the same problem. Pediatricians would do one ear and they wouldn't let them do the other ear. And we did babies, hundreds and hundreds of babies. We even had a specialist who could hold their head in a certain way. So you could pierce the ears. Thank you.
That's great. Let's come that way. No.
I just want to give an advertisement for independent pharmacies. If you're dealing with a pharmacy that has 3 initials in its name and you don't know what they mean, you're not getting your money's worth. Remember this.
They're coming back. Small farmers are coming back.
That's very interesting to me because the mom and pop stores were gone for generations. And now they're coming back. And I wish them success.
And they're clean.
But they gotta put in a lot of time because the profit margins, excuse the language, suck. But, those diet pills that have injections, they cost the pharmacist $1,000. You know, the insurance companies pay them $950. I don't think that's good business to lay out $1,000 and lose $50. That's not good business, but that's the way it is. The insurance company runs the show, and they don't want to. We're easy to pick on the pharmacists, as Stuart can tell you. So, thank you, everyone. I won't bore you with any more. I appreciate your indulgence.
Yeah, this has been so interesting. I just wondered how you love your wife.
Well, as I said, you weren't listening. We were training for a marathon together, and she beat me, so I married her.
There has to be more to this story than that.
No, that's how we met.
I know that's how you met, but there has to be more to the story after that you're not telling us.
Here's a little bit more to that story. Larry is one of the biggest promoters of the Essex Running Club. And in the first year of the club, it's my understanding, he would recruit a lot of people that came into the store. And for many years, he opened up the pharmacy Sunday mornings at 7 o'clock for the long runs that many club members took part in. And he did this for many, many years, gave us free coffee and let us use the bathroom.
But nobody would drink my coffee. That's the
I drink your coffee.
My wife I was an ex-president, and so was Linda. But Linda, I was just nothing. Linda did everything. She did the newsletter. She organized parties. She organized events that they still do today. We started out, there were 12 members in the Essex Running Club. Now there's over 400, I hear. 400 members. And Paul was president. Wasn't a good one, but he was president. He was terrific.
I think we're ready for some of that Zoom conversation. Hold on, I'm going to come to Erin. You have sounds like some former employees on the chat tonight who have some questions for you to settle, Larry. Hold on.
I'll start off with a comment, a nice comment. Emily says, nice to hear you, Larry, the best boss ever. No one can beat Larry. So there's that nice one. Let me see here. Well, this one, you can always say no comment. Remember that. Just keep that in mind. B. Broder says, Larry gave me a stock tip years ago to buy Gilead, and I almost lost my house. I wonder today what his tip of the day is. As I understand, he does a lot of research. Any stock tips for today?
Good at buying losers.
There you go. All right, so then Sydney Wise says, who is your favorite Grove employee? Again, no comment is an option.
Since Michael is here, and Pat is here, and June is here, it was a tie.
There you go. There you go. A couple other tough questions here. From C. Lorber, we have, Adam Lorber and C. Lorber. There we go. We got some Lorbers in the chat here.
That was my cousin.
Okay, Adam says, settle this once and for all. Who was the best Lorber to dust the shelves?
Not Adam.
Well, then C. Lorber follows up with, who was the best delivery boy Grove ever had?
Let me tell you something. Charlie Lorber, he's a lawyer now, retired, should have been a driver because he was the best and the quickest driver Grove ever had.
There you go. There you go, Charlie.
I don't know if he threw the packages down the store.
Michelle says, Larry is the best boss I ever had. Well, truth be told, for 40 years, he was my only boss. So that's not much competition.
She went to work right out of high school. In fact, she'll contest this, but her father got the job. And she always bitches that that's not true. Her father got the job. But she was wonderful. Michelle was the type of the gal. Michelle, can you work tonight? Sure. Can you come in Saturday? Sure. She never said no. I called her the gal, never would say no. So it was terrific. Cool.
Last couple of comments. We do have a couple of ear-piercing good stories. So yes, somebody did say they got just use free candy after their ear piercing. So I think that's another reason you got people coming in for ear piercing. And then the last comment was from Barbara Edwards. She says, we love you, Uncle Larry. We look forward to see what you do in the next 90.
Any final thoughts, comments? Yes, from the nephew in the front. Hold on, come that way.
They live in Connecticut, everyone.
You asked why he was so successful. To this day, it's because he's Larry. Like, I worked as a kid there, and I learned you say hello to everybody, you look them in the eye, you remember their names, and to this day, I try to emulate that, and that's why he was successful, and still is, and why he's still alive.
Can anyone guess what kind of physician he is?
No.
Yes. He's a radiologist. He does special kind of radiology, neuroradiology, but he's a wonderful young man. I guess you're not so young anymore. And his wife, believe it or not, is from Ireland. And I went there for the wedding. And it started at 12 o'clock noon. I left 12 o'clock midnight, drunk as a skunk. And everybody there was still there until 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's like they never had a drink. Incredible. A lot of fun, great couple.
Well, I just want to thank Larry for sharing your story with us tonight. And I want to thank Nancy for pulling those questions out of Larry as well. You can hear that on Zoom. Nancy said putting up with it. I really enjoyed listening to tonight's conversation and getting to know you better, Larry, as well. So thank you on behalf of the History Center and AG Montclair. Thank you for being here. Before you head out, don't right away. Please feel free to mingle, come chat. The Hollanders have so kindly also provided a little dessert bar for us. There's water bottles. There's clearly extra popcorn. Please take a popcorn home. That is just for all of you tonight. So we don't have to rush out of here this moment. And thank you to everyone on Zoom. And then again, a big thank you to Montclair Film for all your help.